We might be live. This could be it. This could be the start of it. DSPN going live. Welcome to it. If you are joining us now, we are in the studio here in Auckland. Martin Devlin, Lachlan Waugh. For the next 30, 35, maybe 45 minutes, comments are coming in thick and fast. Keep them coming in. I'm not sure whether we've actually connected yet. Are we? We are. Welcome then. Happy Sunday to you. I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing because I've just seen one of the best rugby test matches that I think I've ever seen. I'm not talking about us versus Scotland. That was good. Praise to the All Blacks. I'll get onto that in a second. But the Springboks versus France. My God. Boka. That was just an awesome second half from the Boks, the world champions. They are the number one team in the world. They just put a marker down today, didn't they? Down to 14 men. That was a red card too. Don't even argue about that. We'll get onto that as well in the next 30 minutes or so. But that was just powerful class. And they just monstered a French team at home, a French team desperate to win. South Africa putting 19 points on them in that second half and winning that 19-3. So we've got two major matches to talk about, the All Blacks versus Scotland, Boks versus France. That's the one that's uppermost in the memory. The Scotland All Black game, I got up at 4 in the morning. La land out of space. It feels like it was almost yesterday because I went back to sleep for an hour or so and then got up again. Lachlan Waugh joining me in the studio here at Morning Lock. Comments are coming in thick and fast. We'll get to those in just a couple of minutes. I want to start with the All Blacks Scotland. I got a list of positives and a couple of negatives, but we'll start with the positives to start with. 1.
Oh, I've got my notes. Hold on.
All right, you go get those. We won the game. Brilliant. The Grand Slam is alive. We've kept up this incredible record of over 120 years of not losing to Scotland, and they came hard at us. 17 all in the second half to regroup from there. There were some major personal moments from certain players that really did turn the balance there. So 4 wins in a row. And again, the last quarter comeback. And that against Ireland, last 15 or 20 last weekend, last 15 against Scotland. That shows character, resilience. It shows a level of conditioning and also self-belief in this team. Neither of those test matches were what you would call vintage All Black performances, but coming back in the last 20 minutes like that, it's kind of what we did during the 2000s, wasn't it? That we just knew that, you're never going to beat us until the final whistle, and that if we can actually get some possession, some territory, our players are good enough to close out a game. Remember this time not this time last year, it was actually at the beginning of last year. We went 5 or 6 games without being able to score a point in the last 20 minutes. So that's a real big positive. I thought our defence was awesome. And that was across the first half especially. And that first half of rugby, you'd probably say alongside the first half against France and Wellington, probably the best first half that we've played all year. We looked very much in control, I thought. These are the notes that I got. We got out of jail. That's a real positive. Second time in a couple of weeks. That, again, shows resilience, doesn't it? Our intent, I thought, wanting to use the ball, wanting to attack, trying to win the game the whole time. Damien McKenzie, well, again, just stunning off the bench. That's what you want from your impact players. And him especially. Look, he made a couple of plays against Ireland, which were just really simple, classy plays. That inside ball to Satiti, just when we needed him to. He comes on the 50-22 kick. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That put us in a position to go for that try to win the game. His try, where he's on his own effectively over in that left wing, he's got to be a gymnast. He's got to show incredible strength. He's got to wriggle his way through. He's got a guy trying to push him into touch, and he kind of wriggles around and somehow dots it down with the old left. That was brilliant as well. And then he nails, even though he missed the conversion, he nails a really important penalty to get it out to 8 points. I thought his contribution. If I have to go negatives, ill discipline is the big one. Yellow cards. Now, I thought we'd cleaned that up and tidied that up this year. I think it was in Cordoba that Sevu did the intercept.
Yeah, and Will Jordan had like an obstruction type one, I think.
Almost a foot trip. And we saw just about mirrors of that with Leroy Carter. Yeah. And then again with Wallace going off with 50 minutes with 14 players. This I thought we'd actually remove from our game. We got to get rid of that. We can't play England at Twickenham for 50 minutes with 14 players. I keep saying that you can't win a test match with 14. The South Africans have just shown that you can. But I'm just talking about the All Blacks here, and I think that ill discipline, that's something that I think will be talked about all week, obviously. The dropsies continue in terms of kickoffs, and especially our uncertainty under the high ball. That remains an area where I think teams are going to target us, and the Poms would have watched that again. We just don't seem to have the kind of confidence that you would think after 10 test matches, 11 test matches this year that we should have. So maybe that's just a practice ground thing, okay? We let them back into the game. That's got to be a negative. After half-time, 17-0. That period for the next 20 minutes, they really dominated us, Scotland. They came hard at us and got to 17-all. I didn't actually think the game was in the balance. I always thought we were better, and I never really felt like we were going to lose it. But to allow them back into the game, and I suppose as much as it's a positive as well as a negative, we got out of jail for the second time in 2 weeks. But I think that's probably more positive just in terms of our fitness, conditioning, our resilience, our character, and our belief in ourselves. So there's my pos and my negs. But overall, I think that you've got to be pleased with that win against Scotland. They were talking it up all week. I still believe, Lachlan, and keep your comments coming in, people. We've got a heap of them here. We're going to get to those in just a couple of minutes. I still believe Scotland are perhaps 3 or 4 players shy of being a really consistent top 5 or 6 top 6 team. Now, they missed their tight head prop. We don't know what difference he would have made. Everyone says he would have made a huge difference. I think they're probably a couple of forwards light and maybe one really classy back light of being in the same conversation as us, France, Ireland, South Africa.
I don't think they... I say this with all the respect in the world. Scotland, I thought, played really well.
Yeah, they did.
They were valiant.
Yeah.
They faded is better word, excuse me, in that final sort of 15, 20 minutes. But that's sort of expected when you are a side that is a few pegs lower than the 5 or 6 best in the world.
Yeah.
And with respect, I don't think they're ever going to get to that point where they are close to us. I think this is the closest because they have probably the best first 5 in the world, who was playing really, really well, but obviously had an issue with his knee, Finn Russell. And the backline, I think, was reshuffled from what we typically see from Scotland, but I thought the backs played really well. And they are a team that loves to play with high octane, high energy. They throw the ball around. But what has always let them down, which is what probably lets the All Blacks down actually at the moment when you compare us to South Africa, is their forwards. And they were missing their tight head prop, who Tony Johnson was going nuts about all week, saying how great he is.
Yeah, it's in the stand.
So in terms of, in saying that, I don't think their scrum was too bad. They got a couple, I wouldn't say where they rolled over us, but they looked good. We probably had the edge, but I think they held their own when it came to set pieces in the break. Well, no, we were the better side of the breakdown. So, look, Scotland played well. I thought that was actually a really good performance from the All Blacks.
I thought it was a great game.
Yeah. It was a great spectacle, for sure.
So, last week we watched us play Ireland, and, it wasn't a great game of rugby. The last 20 minutes were, the first 60 minutes weren't. And so I've just watched 2 full test matches, and I really enjoyed both test matches. I thought that, again, all 4 sides are trying to win the game. They're trying to use the ball. They're trying to do something with it. There were moments, weren't there? Roygaard's tackle on, was it Darcy?
Yeah, the winger?
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that cover defence is something else. Again, just the determination and the will to get there. He kind of hot stepped down the touchline. He looked as though he should have been out, but somehow, and then if he had dotted down then, that would have put them into a 22-17 lead, I think, at that stage. However, didn't. We turned around, we came back, and as much as Damian McKenzie, I'm sure, would love to be in that starting lineup, when you make that much of an impact off the bench and can change a game that much, you're putting the coach in an almost impossible situation, aren't you? And that he's got to... How do you not want that coming off the bench? Unless we can get somebody who can come off the bench and provide what Damian McKenzie can. But just, I thought his contribution was match winning. That's what it was. It was match winning.
3 key plays: the 50-22. The try and the, as you say, the gymnastic-like manner that he scored it, and then the penalty at the end. Yeah. And I also loved how his face is cut up and bloodied. He's got stains on his white jersey. He looks like a real rugby man. He had a bit of stubble. Obviously, he hadn't shaved this week, Damian McKenzie. Yeah, no, he played really well. But again, it's wonderful to see these performances, and there's going to be calls for him to probably get the starting job. But again, he has these great spurts off the bench, these moments at the end of it. He did the same last week against Ireland. He did the same against, I think, France in the very first test of the year in Dunedin. There's a difference between coming off the bench as a live wire with fresh legs, playing fullback mainly than first five. Obviously, if you're in first five, it's a different story. Than starting a test at 10 and having to control it mainly with your kicking game, which again, apart from his 50-22, I think Roygaard it got pulled back for offside, but Roygaard had a really good box kick that went deep into their half and took us out of trouble. Unfortunately, it was pulled back for offside. But apart from those two moments, again, our kicking game, I think, was pretty ordinary.
Yeah, a couple of times here. We're just walking it downfield, and I just don't know what the purpose is. And we've been doing it all year, and we raised this last week as well. So to me, it's just more about fine-tuning those aspects, figuring out what are the tactics behind our kicking game, making sure that we are rock solid under the high ball, both on attack and defence, because that is still plaguing us. The only reason I bring it up is because it's a worry, because I know that every other team is looking at it. And if we were playing South Africa or France next week, that's one thing about the All Blacks that you'd be looking at going, okay, they are still vulnerable there, so we can attack them there. But overall, I think you've got to look at it in terms of the last 2 weekends, because this is a 4-test tour that we're on. Have we improved? Yeah, the start was so much better than it was against Ireland. We were really muddly, and the word was clunky against Ireland. We started off really well, and I actually think it was born on defence.
Yeah.
They had a lot of pressure on us, but we just weren't cracking. We making the key tackles, getting key turnovers, getting penalties when we needed them to. And again, I just felt like we were in control of that game. This is a game we should win. Don't get me wrong. I'm not celebrating this like a World Cup final or anything. This is a game we should win. We've never lost to Scotland, and Scotland aren't one of the best sides in the world. But on that occasion, at that ground, with all the history behind it, the 100th-year anniversary, everything else, and a team that really came to play, this was a tough, earned win for the All Blacks, and we deserve to win it. No question. We are going to get on to South Africa-France. If you've just joined us on the live broadcast, because
I don't want to.
That game was up another level. After watching us play Scotland, both of those teams, I think we're the second best team in the world. Even after watching France there, I still think that we would take France. We would take that team that they put out. But the South Africans, wow. I mean, what can you say? The red card, let's just go to that for a second. Lachlan, we've got a whole lot of comments coming in. Do you want to grab those in just a second? I just want to talk about that red card briefly, because I want to get your reaction to that as well. I thought that the TMO and the ref got it exactly right. That was a straight red. Now, the difference last week is, in case you don't know what the rules are, and we were actually just making sure got it right. So a yellow that gets upgraded to a red, you can replace the player and bring another one on after 20 minutes. If the ref decides it's a
20 or 25?
20. If it's a straight red,
then they're just gone for the whole game.
Gone for the whole game. And when you looked at it, you got to look at what they call the mitigating factors and everything. Yes, the halfback was low, but he ran into it kind of turning his shoulder like this, tucking his arm.
He's leading with his shoulder.
He's leading with his shoulder.
There's no wrapping motion. He's leading with the shoulder, and it's relatively high.
Yeah, there's no...
If the French player's not falling, it gets him probably on his neck. Or the very upper area of his chest, right?
It's just know these. And I think as soon as you go into any tackle and you don't have your arms, then you leave the decision up to those who are in officialdom, and 99 times out of 100, you're gone. Having said that...
But also, that's how the game's been officiated, so we shouldn't be shocked that was a straight red.
I just thought that was a red. Cop it, South Africa. I'm sure he didn't mean to do it and all of that kind of stuff. It's not a deliberate act of foul play or anything like that. But cop it. The fact that the South Africans were able to regroup and come out in the second half and physically dominate that game and own the French and score 19 points and 3 unanswered tries in that second half. And if you looked at the game and you'd arrived with about 20, 25 minutes to go and you didn't know that they'd had a red card, you wouldn't have thought for a second that they were down to 14 men. And just how do you say cojones in Yapi land? The sheer nuts of that South African
Google
team.
Translate.
That you're prepared to, because there were times there with 5-6 minutes to go, I was thinking you got enough of a lead, kick the penalty, get out to 8 points. But no, they just kept banging away at the corner, so confident they're going to score tries. And in Sasha Feinberg and Ngomazulu, I think, and here am I going way out on a limb here, but I think that World Rugby has found the successor to Dan Carter. I think this guy is on a trajectory now. His skill level, his ability to dictate a game, his control of a game, his all-round skills, that he's not quite at Dan Carter level yet. But if he continues on this path, he's only 23 years old. What a player.
So his age, he's 23. At his current age, Dan Carter was 23 in 2005
Where-
on that Lions tour.
Okay, look, the Lions coming here,
So when the Lions came here. So Dan Carter turned 23 of March of 2005. So just for comparison's sake. So by that time, Carter had 2 or 3 years at a pretty high level of Test rugby. His ascendancy was quite quick, wasn't it?
He didn't play in 03 at the World Cup.
He was at he was at the World Cup.
But he didn't play in the major matches, mate. So
Did he come off the bench in the semi?
no.
But he had gone straight from Canterbury to the All Blacks, I think. But he'd had 2 or 3 years at a pretty high level. Rasasha Feinberg and Gomazelu has been great this year. He got the Breakout Player of the Year award last year, but he's been kind of meandering along, I think. Because didn't he get dropped out of the whole team from Rassie? I could be wrong here. South Africans, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Rassie drop him out of the team?
Yeah, and he wasn't convincing. Remember in the first match against Australia, I think it was Pollard that started that match, or they started Sasha. No, they started Libbok.
They've been kind of mixing them up. Libbok, Pollard, and Feinberg and Gomazelu. Yeah, I agree with you. He's a big body. I think there's 2 things that Carter had just absolutely perfectly down pat that I think he's really still needs to improve on, which is the in-game kicking, or off the tee as well, but the kicking game overall and his defence. He's not bad, but he could be a lot better to be close to Dan Carter. Dan Carter was...
We're talking Daniel Carter.
I know.
We're talking Daniel
exactly.
Carter, the greatest first five that's played the
if
game.
you're going to say he's the next Carter, well, then you're insinuating that he's going to be this all-round, because Carter did everything.
Yeah.
10 out of 10.
Oh, look, I'm watching that performance today. I thought he was absolutely...
He was. He's a great player. He's my favourite.
I don't know whether it's just me, but maybe it's the way that they played the box as well. But when you're watching them play like that, they just look so much bigger and nastier and meaner and more physical.
They're men.
And more ferocious, don't they, than every other team. Like, I looked at them and I thought, I'd love a whole lot of black jerseys on those backs. I don't say that very often about any team in the world. But hats off to you, South Africa. You are the best team in the world. And that is a crushing win for against the French. On their home patch, in a match that they were desperate to win, a match that when it was 15 versus 14, and they looked pretty much in control in that first half, the French, they just would have come out cock-a-hoop in the second half thinking that, I'm sure they would have thought that this is ours. And you didn't even let them in the game.
2 comments here on the Springboks.
Okay.
One says, the Springboks, we'll get back to the All Blacks in a sec, of course, but just quickly on the Springboks. Are they peaking too early in the World Cup cycle? This is from Connor Smith, 5924. Do you think?
No.
Well, time will tell.
No,
if they obviously don't perform well at the World Cup in 2 years' time.
I don't just buy into this World Cup cycle thing and peaking here. Look, so they're peaking now. Well, can't they peak
What do you
again
mean you
next
don't
year?
buy into it? The All Blacks mucked it up ahead of 07, and the Springboks timed it perfectly ahead of 23.
I've gone back to the thing of just looking at the games as we watch them and just wanting us to play well in these games. And I think the South Africans, look, if they're playing well now, why would they be playing any worse next year? Why would they be playing any worse the year after that?
I've got a great counter. This isn't from my own brain, but this is something that John Smith said. So when he was on the podcast, when you were on a nice little boat in Italy with your feet up and having a time off, I was lucky enough to speak to John Smith. He said that in 2009 when they swept the All Blacks, I asked him what happened, that you were so good that year and then the next year we beat you, I think, all 3 times. He said, it wasn't that we peaked too early, but we essentially had done so well in 09, we'd swept the All Blacks and we thought, great, we've got the formula. And then they didn't really account for the fact that the All Blacks would come back swinging and find a way to then beat the Springboks, and they didn't have an answer to what the All Blacks did. So there's an idea about being world beaters and being the best team in the world, but then others are always chasing you and whatnot.
But you can't, as long as you don't lower your standards. But I think that they are so strong that what's
their plan B? This is
their plan B is the other 30 guys they got on the bench.
But they play a certain way, right? They play a certain way, and they can't really, because when we saw this was against Australia at Ellis Park, when they try and spread the ball, they sort of get run off their feet when another team can counter that same style, right?
Well,
and we saw this at the World Cup final in 23.
Do they need a plan B at the moment?
Well, yeah, you do, because when you start to lose, well, this is my point, that if I'm sort of comparing this to that 09 team. I'm comparing this to the 09 team and every All Blacks team that didn't win a World Cup before we won one in 2011, that you can peak too early and other teams can figure you out. You need to find a way to then reverse that on them.
Mate, I just think that's media words that creates articles and then that becomes a narrative.
It's the words of an ex-Springbok captain who won a World Cup who said that. He said that we got complacent and then others found us out. That's all I'm saying.
Getting complacent is different from peaking too early. And I look.
Well, they're kind of intertwined.
I'm sure they're happy where they're at. I'm sure they're happy. And in terms of the All Blacks, I expect us to get better. I don't think we're the finished article. Whether South Africa are or not, that's entirely them.
I said this to you as well when we came in, that this is what it must have felt like to be everyone else in the 2010s.
Yeah.
South Africa are just so much better.
Yeah, they are. And you expect them to win these games.
We're just chasing.
If there was one game they were going to lose, and I was sitting there ready to write their epitaph going, you can't be the best team in the world when you've already lost to Australia and New Zealand and France in 1 year. Oh, that's right, you're not losing to France. You're actually dicking France. Okay, keep the comments coming in. Lachlan will come back to that in a second.
Oh, let's do a couple more because I only did one there. This is around the Carter-Sasha Feinberg comparison. Carter hasn't had a single outstanding... this is Leroy Carter. Hold on. Leroy Carter hasn't had a single outstanding game in the black jersey yet. Carter's throwing me off by people saying Carter because I think they're saying Dan. I don't know if I totally agree with that. That was from Is It True 101. I thought he was pretty good against the Springboks in Wellington. Then again, we did lose that game by a lot. Bodie impersonating Sexton in the World Cup semi. Again, Bowden Barrett was a little bit underwhelming, I thought. I don't think he really did anything. Didn't do anything terribly, but...
Well, I thought the first half we were great. I don't know what more we could have done in the first half. Maybe piled on another 10 more points or things, but we weren't. Apart from, I think, the dropsies, which is frustrating, and losing ball and contact and things like that, and the up and unders, the kicking game, even the line, even retrieving kickoffs, we're not that certain at the moment. But I don't think we did too much wrong in that first half. That's why I actually rated it as a first half. I think it's as good as we played against the French C team when we played them at Wellington.
Pretty good C team. The Ringmaster 886 says, why are you guys trying to get Carter dropped? He's very good. He's hardly had the ball. I don't think we're trying.
No, you're missing the Carters here.
He might be talking about some of the commenters. Just one more. Grand Slam for Box and All Blacks, surely. Well, yeah, we're both. Well, the Springboks, they're not doing a Grand Slam, are they? But no. I guess for us, it's looking good. 2 out of 2 so far.
Let's go back to Leroy Carter. That was really silly and stupid. And
yeah, the trip, yeah.
And look, he's a young guy. And just like Satiti, when Sevu did it against Argentina, I was just gobsmacked. I was just thinking, oh my God, how stupid was that? You know, you've got way too much experience. In the heat of the moment, I'll cut these guys some slack that they haven't played that many games for the All Blacks, but that has to stop. You cannot do it. You are going to cost your team a game if you persist in throwing a leg out trying to foot trip somebody. Look, it gets a red card in football. You're going to get a yellow card. Just dumbass, right? Same as Satiti. And we saw the French guy do it as well. I can't remember who he was. We saw him do it. Whether you agree with it or not, I'm kind of in two minds about it. I like the fact of somebody going for an intercept. I think it's part of the game. But you can tell when somebody's going for an intercept and when they can really get that intercept. And I think the rules are pretty clear. You've either got to catch it in 2 hands or catch it in 1 hand, or else you're going off for 10. It's that simple. And so you know that that's the rule. And so to do that means you are going to cost your team. So I thought both yellow cards were stupid. As far as Artie's yellow card went, when you're getting pressured on the line like that and the next guy, if they concede a penalty, the next guy's going to go, well, that's just part of it, isn't it? And we see it in almost every game. Okay. I don't really blame him for that. But the other 2 yellow cards, that's ill discipline. And it was disappointing because we've cleaned that up since the start of the year. For too many test matches, and I think if you go back for the last couple of years, too many test matches, the All Blacks are playing with 14. And we can't win against our major opponents with 14 on the field, or it's such a struggle to do that. Having said that, South Africa countered that today, obviously, but I mean, they're a team that is just in a world of their own, it seems, at the moment. You look at that Yapi team against Australia, and we've got to talk about Australia in a second as well, because they lost to Italy today. Mm-hmm. But, they were 22 up after 17 minutes, and I remember we were saying, I was going to turn the TV off. I thought they were going to dick Australia by 50 points that day, right? Then they started playing this really weird style of rugby, whereas instead of taking it into contact and dragging defenders in and using their physicalness, they started to sling the ball around, and they let Australia back in. Australia were brilliant on the counter-ruck in the second half, and then just one-on-one percentage plays where the backs just absolutely shone. When it came to Eden Park, I thought the All Blacks, I'll maintain we deserved to win that game. But again, in that last 10 minutes, the South Africans were enormous. And they had that 78% possession thing, and they were down to 14, and they scored a try, and they were looking to try and get another one to draw the game. We saw lots of that in the second half at Stade de France as well, where that team is just physically, damn, they just look... They seem to be able to interchange their moving parts, don't they? Like one guy comes off, one guy goes on, and you think, what is this, a clone? It kind of appears and feels like that.
Depth building.
Yeah.
Which is what Rassie, I think he's done it more than just a couple of years. He's been doing it for a while, I think.
All right.
Remember when he got the job, or when they won in Japan in 2019, he said, I actually didn't even try and win this one. It's actually the next one that I had my eye on, not this one. So,
Keep them coming comments-wise. We'll get to that. I've got some questions for you, Lachlan. Has Caleb Clark locked in the number 11 jersey for the All Blacks? He's playing great rugby at the moment.
I think so. Apparently, did he get injured? Apparently he's got a little bit of a niggle.
HIA.
HIA? I must have missed that. My apologies.
His head kind of hit the hip. His jaw hit the hip.
I must have missed that. Well, when healthy, yes, I think so. To be fair, I think he's probably had that 11 jumper for a couple of years.
Remember he had that standout game against Australia in COVID year.
2020, yeah.
Well, the year before COVID. And we all thought
No, it was 2020. It was just after. It was when we had those 2 afternoon tests at Eden Park.
He was being accused of being the next Jonah at that stage, wasn't he?
Yeah.
But I'm loving the way that he's playing. I actually like the way that back three is going. Leroy Carter a bit quiet today, but I actually think Caleb Clark has got that number 11.
I think the key thing about Leroy Carter, he's a bit similar, I think, when we had George Bridge in the All Blacks, is that he's not really, apart from the yellow card, I don't think he's making any glaring errors. I think defensively he got found out in his first test against the Box, but he's not making errors. And the problem is that we had a couple of wingers who either weren't doing anything at all, Enrico Ioane, with respect, or Severus, who was making really bad mistakes. But
would you
I
keep
think
him for this England test?
No, I would mix it up. Well, because Caleb might be out. And if Caleb's out, then Leroy obviously sticks around. I've said for a couple of months that I want to see Geordie Barrett back at fullback, and I want to see Will Jordan on the wing. I know that all of the Crusaders and Tasman fans, even the Cantabrian fans, will go nuts saying Will Jordan's best position is fullback, and Razor has played him there for most of his career outside of the All Blacks, and now in the All Blacks he's playing there as well. I think Will Jordan makes as much of an impact on the game on the wing as he does at fullback, and I think if you had hypothetically Geordie in there, you've got a lot of height.
Second question. Did the midfield perform like you wanted them to perform?
Yes, I made a note. Where are my notes? It's about 2.5 pages worth, but I made a note saying that midfield combination is getting meters. And I love the fact that the distribution as well from Lester Whanganuku is a lot better than I expected. Because obviously someone who started out as a winger and moved to centre, similar to Tana, you'd think, I don't know, more so of a game breaker than a ball distributor. But I thought that element of his game was really good. Quinty Pyre, I think, is secured in that 12 jumper now. So that'll be very interesting.
Until Geordie comes back.
Well, that's the thing. So, because Tupai is more of a natural 12. I mean, again, it depends on the balance that you want in 12 and 13, but I thought the midfield was great. I really did.
Leicester is our centre.
Well, then does Tupai go to the bench if Geordie comes back?
Well, okay, again, you talk about the depth thing, but I actually think the number 13 jersey is on Leicester's back. I just love the power that he brings. I just love the fact that he is going to attract two people to him every time he's got the ball, and he just seems to create things. That's what he does. He dropped a couple, sure, but I just...
So when Geordie's healthy, let's say... Everyone, first test in next year, because he's out for the rest of the year, isn't he, Geordie? First test in next year, does Geordie Barrett start at 12?
Yep.
And Leicester's at 13?
I say yes because that's
that's
how the selectors think. This is how they think. The guy that was in there, if he gets injured, always has a chance to come back and re-establish himself. So that's just how I think they think. Does Leicester have the best mullet in international rugby? Mm-hmm. I think he does. I think that he's got the Lionel Richie going on there, that little curly frizz thing, right? Yeah. Look up the 80s Lionel Richie videos.
Yeah, the frizzy mullet.
Yeah, the frizzy
Dallon's got a bit of frizzy mullet for the Warriors.
Yeah, carbon copy. Is Scotland the new Ireland of the 2010s in that they're creeping closer and closer and closer and closer to us? Just like Ireland did through that period where they had 3 or 4 chances where they thought they were going to win games, and then...
The early 2010s, yes.
Yeah, DC dropped goals 1, and then Aaron Cruden does... the penalty again. The conversion again from the sideline.
Scores the try.
Yeah, they had 2 or 3 matches, or maybe 3 or 4 matches where they got really close. And I'm wondering if you look back at the last 3 or 4 results with us in Scotland, they're all 5 points, 6 points. Today was 8 points, I think it was, and so 25-17. So are they inching forward closer and closer, or do you think that, like I believe, they still need 3 or 4 players? I just believe that they're that.
I think everyone thinks that.
They're just a little bit shy of being able to beat us because they don't have the strength and depth.
So Ireland went to another level because they were sort of teetering close to... so in 2007, they failed to make the World Cup playoff stage. Then again, they were in a really tough pool with Argentina and France. And then in 2011, they had that incredible win over Australia, but then lost in the quarterfinals. And then they sort of just took it, 2 steps forward, 1 step back kind of thing for a number of years. And I think they got the Six Nations version of a Grand Slam is what they call it, when you win every single game and you win all those cups. They did that in 2009, and I think they did it in 2014 and 2015. So they were progressively getting better. But something took them to the next level. And I don't know if it's as simple as Joe Schmidt was an amazing coach, and then they were obviously number 1 in the world. They beat the All Blacks a couple of times. And then obviously Andy Farrell's taken them to another level. Whatever they did, I guess you'd say Scotland had to do a similar thing. Was it that they had an amazing selection of administrative staff who made really good decisions around depth building in the country or systems that helped build up a really good player base? Or was it as simple as they just had some good players and a couple of good coaches, which would then mean that Ireland now are probably going to start to go down? Do you know what I'm saying?
They've got to start recruiting. This is what Scotland have got to do, because that's what Ireland did. They started recruiting from outside of Ireland, and then you do the 3-year residency. That's what Scotland have got to do. Whatever if they want to get to this level, they've got to do whatever it takes.
They've probably got to mirror it. But I still feel, because for all of rugby history, or at least the last 50 or 60 years, or at least in your lifetime, Ireland have more often than not been a better side than Scotland. So Scotland would have a lot of making up to do to be in that ballpark.
Another question. Is Cobus Reinach up there with Roygaard and DuPont as one of the very best number 9s?
He's been around for a number of years, Reinach.
That was a brilliant try from him. That was an absolutely brilliant try in that first half. They had South Africa had no scoring opportunities in that first half. They were all off the boot. And then he does that. He breaks that first tackle, chip and chase. It was superb. Got them right back in the game.
I think Roygaard and DuPont are the two clear best in the world. And I think there will be a point in the next year or two where Roygaard is the best, assuming he stays healthy. That's not because I don't think DuPont's good. It's because DuPont's getting a little bit older.
Was that the most comfortable test match you've watched all year with the All Blacks?
No. Comfortable in what sense?
Well, the first half especially. Did
you ever
think we were going to lose? I don't think we were going to lose it. Even at 17-all, I didn't think we were going to lose the game.
No, but we've also we've gotten how do I word this? We have a habit of scoring late and turning the screw late on, and that was last week against Ireland was very, very good. That followed on a very poor first hour, but then this week it was a very good first half. Then some ill discipline put us on the back foot. Scotland, that 25-minute period to start the second half, I don't think that was us making any blatant errors. That was Scotland playing really, really well.
Yeah.
Physically, I think they just went to another level, but which they couldn't sustain, which is why they failed.
They kind of burned themselves out.
Yeah. So it was comfortable in the sense that I know we're a better side, and I thought we could score points, and we've done that this year. We've scored points in that final quarter.
I was quite confident.
Yeah, the opposite of 12 months ago. This year we're actually able to score points in that final quarter of the game to secure victories.
Were France underdone, like Ireland were last week?
France didn't play last week, did they? Or if they did, it would have been some trial game where France A or something.
It wasn't a fully fledged international, no.
No, I'm pretty sure they didn't play last week. So, yeah, they would be underdone in the same way the All Blacks are underdone in their very first test of the year. So that was France's very first test of the season, I guess. And that's a pretty tough side to play in your first test. A Springboks side that had been playing really well this year. So, yeah, I would say they were underdone. So, because they led pretty much the entire contest, France, until South Africa scored those last, was it 2 or 3 tries they got towards the end? I think 3 of them. 3 tries.
3.
So that makes sense. Fitness levels probably aren't the same. Just the polish around the edges that you'd have, you don't quite have that yet.
I think the Southern Hemisphere teams, well, apart from Australia, who we'll get onto now, coming in hard in that last 20 minutes. It just goes to show, doesn't it, that having that conditioning and having had that rugby, as opposed, well, a lot of the, apart from the French, of course, a lot of the English, Irish, Scots, and Welsh players are on the Lions tour, of course. We're going to have What Have We Learned very shortly. Let's touch briefly on Australia. Man, that Ellis Park test and their win against the Lions in the dead third rubber, that second half against... Remember the second test against the Lions? They led for about 70 minutes of that game, or 78 minutes of the game.
Virtually the entire contest.
That must seem such a long time ago now for the Australian players and for Joe Schmidt, because they've now just lost to Italy. They've got France and Ireland to come.
Yeah.
Okay, so they could go 0-4, 1-5. They beat Japan. Now they've got Ireland
barely.
And France to come after losing to England.
So the thing with Australia, I'm just double checking their team here to see if there's any glaring omissions, because I haven't really seen much of the game. I won't lie.
I just saw some highlights.
Callaway, Peach. So it's a pretty tiny. Their first 5 situations diabolical. Australia, Jake Gordon. So there are some first teamers in there. There are also some names that wouldn't be in their best 15, but it's a pretty good side. Hold on, that was the Japanese game. Jeez, I looked at the wrong one. My apologies. Where are we? Okay.
Couple of comments in about Jamie Joseph in the All Blacks. The NZ15. Look, okay. You've just got to put a perspective on this. Who are they playing? Okay? And look at the standard of. And, just because you play well in that doesn't mean that all of a sudden your elevation to test level the next week is absolutely guaranteed and that then you perform at that level. I just don't think that 1 + 1 necessarily equals 2. I love this comment, DuPont. What are you on, mate? you forget what a great player this guy is.
Dupont's been injured for a while as well.
I know,
That's
but
why
you forget what a great player he is.
Before.
He just because he's injured doesn't mean he's turned into a worse player. And there's a few grumbles about, hey, we were no good in the first 60 minutes against Ireland last week. I agree with that. We were pretty poor, and we had that bad flat patch against Scotland after the start of the second half. I agree with that as well. But also I think the encouragement is that we came on big time in the last 20 and the last 15. A fair few South African fans watching and say, yeah, you are second best. No, admit that. The Springboks are the best side in the world right now. No, I don't. There's no debate about that. You're just silly if you actually even start arguing against that. Clearly they are. And that's the level that we've got to get to.
Just quickly with the Wallabies, by the way, Carter Gordon played this morning, which was cool. So he's back in the Wallabies, I guess, environment. I never thought, just back to them quickly, I never thought they were going to have a really good interview to it, because I thought the performances against the Lions mixed in with some pretty good showings against the All Blacks, at least at Eden Park, and beating South Africa, I just thought that was their ceiling. They are not a deep nation, and I don't think they're capable, and this is not to be disrespectful, I don't think they're capable of stringing together seriously good test performances week on week on week on week.
All right, we've got England next week, so let's wrap it up. We've also got the Changing Sheds, which is now our subscription model here on the DSPN. And if you are watching on YouTube and you see that join button next to subscribe, if you can hit subscribe for us, we love you for that. If you want to be part of the family, which means that you're paying $2 a week and you get a whole lot of extra content, again, we would very much appreciate that. Hit the join button. It's called The Changing Sheds, and an episode is out every Friday. We'll be here with you all week, putting out content all week. Brayton Polser is going to join us this week, so looking forward to that. Get his perspective on that win against France. We'll close it out with a whole lot of stuff that we have learned. Number one. Just out of nowhere, no real list. South Africa are the best team in the world without question. We've already said that, and it makes me sick in my throat every time I say it, but I've got to say it because it is the truth. Sasha/Mackenzie are worth the ticket price on their own, aren't they? Those two players at the moment, absolute top of their game. What you saw from Sasha today and what you saw from Damien Mackenzie, just brilliant to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, Mackenzie, I think, in particular, has really elevated his stock in New Zealand rugby this year. Sasha, for a while, I've been a big fan of his because I remember watching him last year at the end of a test against the All Blacks. He played really well. Yeah, I think Mackenzie's an interesting one. I think he poses a bit of an issue with the All Blacks selectors because he's not a starting test first five.
I agree with that.
He is clearly
what a weapon,
a handy tool off the bench.
But maybe he's Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, mate. Maybe he's the guy that's just going to come on and win you games.
Everything's back to Man United, isn't it?
Yeah.
But maybe he's, you'd have him as first five cover on the bench and have another outside back. I don't know. The All Blacks have some good problems, actually. That's a good problem to have.
Scotland still 3 or 4 players short.
Yes, we've
Valiant.
established that.
Aussie are in all sorts of bother. We learned that.
Yeah, they just need to keep building. They just need to. They have a framework of players, if that makes sense. They've obviously got it. Well, Joe Schmidt's gone after
this. Yeah,
was after the
no, I
tour.
think he's.
Was he around for the Rugby Championship next year? They
Rugby?
keep sort of extending his departure. So they're in a bit of an odd situation. There are things to circle and to hang on to if you're the Wallabies.
England are going to be a massive test this weekend. We've had a few messages come in saying, they only just beat Fiji. Fiji are no mugs.
They beat them by 20 points.
Beat them. If you lay down 20 points on Fiji at the moment.
Fiji beat them at Twickenham before the World Cup, the last World Cup, by the way.
That is a good result. And they did the same. They comfortably took care of business against Australia last week. They're going to be a massive test this weekend. We need to keep our discipline. We got to have 15 on the field at Twickenham this weekend. And we also need to sort out our high ball because we're still unconvincing there. And over the period of the year, to me, that's still a real worry that, look, you are going to miss some because of the way that the game is structured and it's a one-on-one situation and you're looking at the ball, you're not going to get everything clean. But I don't know what the error rate is, but I'd say that we're probably catching less than half in that game. So that's what it appeared like watching. Maybe the stats will prove me completely wrong. But I still think we've got lots of work to do under that high ball, as well as kickoffs. The All Blacks are the comeback kings in World Rugby right now because that's 2 in a row, coming back in the last 2015.
Yep.
Springboks probably got a good case for that,
games,
but the Springboks aren't behind that often. You don't.
We didn't fall behind at all today, did we?
The refs and the TMO can get it right. We learned that. I have no problem with the yellow cards that New Zealand got. None at all. Not arguing about any of them. 2 dumbass yellow cards, and Artie got done because that's just the professional foul that you do. And deserved his.
Yeah.
No question. The ref got that right.
Yeah.
Or the TMO got that right. And whether you are in agreement because it's the rules, it doesn't matter. Those are the rules. Hey, officer, I was only going 56k in the 50k zone. Yes, but it's a 50k zone. Yeah, but I was only going 6 over. Yeah, but it's a 50k zone. You're going to pay the fine regardless. I didn't mean to shoulder him in the head.
But you did it.
But you did.
Yeah.
That's what happened. And so with no arms, you're going to get a red card. Those are the way that the rules are interpreted. You can't argue with that. And yeah, I think together we have to actually look down the barrel of the camera, Lachlan, and say Boca, Boca, Boca.
I'm not saying Boca, Boca. I'm not South African. I'm not saying that. I've never once said that that they're not a good side. They're a very good side, South Africa. They're the best in the world, and they have been.
Oh, look at that! Did he just say that?
Come on, get off it. I've been saying it for all year that they're the best team in the world. And I said that they can reaffirm that if they get one win over us in New Zealand, which they did, and they beat us 43-10, and that was still painful.
Tony Johnson will join us tomorrow, people, on the podcast as he does. Just one word about the coverage. Did you think that the sound was weird? We just didn't have any kind of crowd sound effects in the...
Well, there's a few. Thought it dipped in and out as if they had some... Justin Marshall didn't say anything for like the first 6 minutes.
It was weird, yeah.
No, they must have had like an audio issue because it sounded like it was Tony on his own.
Yeah, and it sounded like he was just in silence. Like I know that they said the crowd was a little subdued at times, but when it roared...
They were loud in the second half.
It roared, yeah. And what a great ground that is to play rugby at. I've never been to Edinburgh or Murrayfield, so I don't know. But God, the pictures look good, didn't they?
Looks like a good ground.
That is it for us. We've been here for about 40 minutes. Thank you so much. If you have been watching, we do a live broadcast on the DSPN, and this is going to be every Sunday throughout this Grand Slam tour. 2 up for the All Blacks then. I sat here last week and I was a bit grumpy about the way we'd played against Ireland, but I'll take that win against Scotland, and I'll take the back-to-back wins. We're 2 up. I think the biggest test of this Grand Slam is actually coming against Twickenham, against England at Twickenham this coming weekend. And we're going to have to play better than we have in both of those games, iron out our deficiencies, keep 15 on the field. It's going to be a hell of a contest. Appreciate very much that you have spent some time with us. We thank Novus, as always. And if you're going to make a consumer choice, you've got to crack on that windscreen. You notice it. Novus, it does help us out. Very generous that they are sponsoring this show. Thank you so much. Let's go and enjoy our Sunday. Kiwis at 6 o'clock. More sport to watch. Go on. Hey? How good are Sundays?